Good morning. Before we begin, the Democratic caucus had a successful election for the position of co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, and we're excited to be joined by Representative Lori Trahan and the full complement of the DPCC today. Welcome back. And just a reminder, these visuals are again a reminder of the least productive Congress in more than 90 years. Don't take our word for it. One Republican said on the House floor that he couldn't name, quote, one meaningful, significant thing the Republican majority has done. This is historic amount of dysfunction, and this is what happens when extreme MAGA Republicans dictate the agenda. Republicans have tried to criminalize abortion and slash Social Security and Medicare at every turn. And now Donald Trump, the leader of their party, is gearing up for yet another attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're talking about kicking 40 million Americans off of their health care and denying coverage for 135 million Americans with pre-existing conditions. When the House Democrats held the majority, we strengthened the Affordable Care Act. We passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. These laws are creating good-paying jobs, lowering energy costs, and making schools safer and our communities across the country safer. It's not too late for Republicans, as we have said time and time again, to extend an arm and to work in a bipartisan way with Democrats to help everyday Americans. With that, I'd like to introduce the Vice Chair, Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. When we come back next week in December, there's only going to be 2 legislative weeks left, and then we go on holiday break, and then in January we face a government shutdown. So what are Republicans having us do this week? Are we voting on any appropriations bills? No. They seem to have largely given up on trying to pass appropriations bills with their own votes. Instead, they're focused on impeachment. While Democrats put people over politics and we're trying to lower costs, create safer communities, and create more jobs, Republicans are focused on impeachment. How does that help the American family? It doesn't. As Chairman Aguilar said, we do have some good news, though, on the Democratic caucus side. We're thrilled that our caucus elected Lori Trahan to the DPCC. I served for 2 terms on the DPCC, and she is going to be an amazing member. She came from a working-class family. Her grandparents immigrated to America to seek the American dream. Her dad worked as a union iron worker, long hours. Her mom worked part-time jobs, cared for her 3 sisters. And now Lori is the first Portuguese-American female in Congress and a member of House leadership. That is what Democrats are, and that's what we do. We try to help the American people. We try to help people achieve the American dream. And with that, it's my honor to introduce our fabulous chair of the DPCC, Joe Neguse.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Lieu and Chairman Aguilar. As the Vice Chair noted, sadly, another week of Republican dysfunction here in Washington, D.C. But on a brighter note, as he also noted, we are so excited to welcome our friend and colleague and my classmate, Congresswoman Lori Trahan, as the newest co-chair of the DPCC. As you all know, the DPCC is here to deliver a unified message for House Democrats to demonstrate our commitment to putting people over politics and lowering costs for working families. And Lori knows exactly what it means to fight for working families. As the Vice Chair mentioned, she is the daughter of a union iron worker. Her mother juggled part-time jobs while raising her and her siblings. She waited tables at a diner in her hometown and delivered papers. She was the first person in her family to graduate from college, and she has had such an impressive career across the public and private sectors. From the neighborhoods of Lowell to the halls of Congress, Massachusetts has a champion in Congresswoman Lori Trahan, and so do we as the House Democratic Caucus and the DPCC. So we are excited to welcome her to our cause. While we stand here united, as always, and ready to deliver for the American people, extreme MAGA Republicans continue to waste time with petty political games. They simply cannot govern responsibly or in the best interests of everyday Americans. And that difference, that contrast, certainly couldn't be any clearer. And it is why, as I've communicated to Lori, that certainly makes our job a whole lot easier. But nonetheless, we'll continue to underscore that contrast, which is so important for the American people, and our work will continue. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our newest DPCC co-chair, Congresswoman Trahan.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Joe Neguse. It's such an honor to be here with Chair Aguilar and Vice Chair Liu and my colleagues on the DPCC. I'd just like to start by commending Congressman Crow on running a very strong campaign. Our caucus benefits mightily from his incredible contributions and his experience. And we're better off because of him. I'm fortunate to call him a friend and a classmate, and I plan to lean on his expertise in this new role. More than anything, I'm humbled by the trust that my colleagues have placed in me to help lead the House Policy Communications Committee. You know, I ran for this position because I want to do everything in my power to defeat Republican extremism, retake the House, and return the American people to the center of everything that we do. We have a remarkable story to tell in between now and the next election, and we have a caucus full of incredible messengers already working to make sure that hardworking families across the nation hear it. So I look forward to working with Chairman Neguse and co-chairs Escobar and Underwood, as well as the entire Democratic leadership team, to support our members as we continue to march to the majority. And with that, I will turn it over to co-chair Escobar. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I want to congratulate our wonderful colleague, Lori Trahan, for her victory and thank her and express my gratitude for her willingness to step up and help lead House Democrats. As both our caucus chairman and our DPCC chair have mentioned, Republicans are doing a great job of doing our work for us on the DPCC. They have articulated over and over again to the American people that they cannot govern, they don't have winning issues, and they don't know how to lead. And our job as members of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee is to ensure that the American public understands just how dangerous and reckless the MAGA extremists in our House of Representatives are, and the fact that while we seek to improve the lives of everyday Americans, make sure that we uplift our families and expand the middle class, they are focused on infighting and on attacking our very institutions. And we will, with Lori's help, continue to point that out every step of the way so that the American people are well aware of the risks that continue when MAGA extremists are in charge. With that, I will turn it over to our co-chair, Lauren Underwood.
Good morning. I'd like to begin by offering my congratulations to my colleague and friend, Congresswoman Lori Trahan, for her election to the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Lori's a friend, and she has a proven track record of excellence when it comes to clearly communicating our values. So happy to have her on board. And it couldn't come at a better time. As this extreme MAGA Republican majority continues to hold our important work hostage with their chaos and dysfunction, it's never been more important for House Democrats to be clear in our conversations with the American people about our work to improve everyday lives for working families. We remain focused on lowering the cost of living, on expanding the middle class, and on protecting our freedoms. You will see this on display once again as we work to fully fund our government ahead of the deadline in January. House Democrats will not stand for cuts to critical services that our communities are counting on. We will continue fighting to protect access to abortion and to protect LGBTQ+ people from discrimination. We will also keep working to protect and expand access to health care. I'll pause there to emphasize for anyone that happens to be watching that we have defeated 60 attempts to repeal and undercut the Affordable Care Act. More than 40 million Americans have coverage thanks to the ACA. So let me tell Republicans in Congress, you are not taking away our health care. And that's to President Trump too. And one more thing, we will not allow the cuts to Social Security and Medicare that this extreme MAGA majority is pushing for. Our values are clear, and we remain focused on delivering for working families. Congratulations again to Congresswoman Lori Trahan, and we are excited to get to work. Thank you. And happy to yield back to the chairman.
Thank you, Lauren. Questions? Nick?
I have a question for you about immigration. There's talks in the Senate about potentially changing asylum as part of this supplemental package. Is this something that would be a red line for you?
I think we haven't seen any of the details of what the Senate has been working on. I think a lot of us understand the importance, and I'll yield to DPCC co-chair Veronica Escobar here shortly, but a lot of us understand the urgency with the funding that is necessary for our colleagues in Ukraine. Unlocking assistance for Ukraine and Israel, making sure there's humanitarian assistance for Palestinians, ensuring that we make investments in the Indo-Pacific region. Those are all priorities of national security importance, and we want to ensure that those come to a vote. Unfortunately, here in the House, Speaker Johnson has made those attempts political. He has bowed to the pro-Putin wing of his party. He has not put up for a vote Ukraine assistance, and added a number of conditions to the Israel funding that you have reported on in the past. And so it's just deeply troubling. We await the product of what the Senate is doing. We govern in details on our side, and we want to see what this looks like. But we understand the importance of what's ahead. And we understand the importance of ensuring that Ukrainians continue to fight for their freedom and have the resources to do that. Vice Chair Liu or Veronica?
Thank you so much, Chairman. I'll tell you, the idea of conditioning emergency aid, conditioning it on conversations around what has been a long, challenging issue, what's happening at the border and beyond, is nonsensical to me as a representative of the border, as a lifelong border resident. I will also tell you, Democrats understand we have to address the challenges that we face, as well as embrace the opportunities that come with long overdue reforms. Doing it by tying emergency aid to border policies is not a solution. And in fact, as Chairman Aguilar mentioned, we don't know what details are being discussed. What I have read, though, in media reports, is that the focus is on parole programs and asylum limitations. Neither of those things will change the calculus at the border. So if we really want to address what's happening not just at the border but beyond, and if Republicans want to work with us on solutions, we have a whole host of ideas, a whole host of solutions. We want to address this. But this process is not the way to do it. It's been 37 years since there's been comprehensive immigration reform. And in that time, we've not seen the progress that we want, deserve, or need. This is not the moment to begin eroding our values in exchange for emergency aid.
This isn't theoretical for Co-Chair Escobar. She lives in this community. She's been dealing with these issues for a long time. We share the concerns. We know that she's also no stranger to working in a bipartisan basis to get things done. And so I would encourage folks to reach out and to lean on expertise where we have it in the House. Eric?
I have a question on Forbes. January 19th is coming fast and furious. Are there any talks between Democrats and Republicans on top lines? Clearly they've not brought any more Forbes bills to the floor. How do we get out of another jam in January?
And all signs point to their desire to get to a jam, right? Just look at what we have here. They aren't serious about governing. If they were serious about governing, they would engage with us, work on bipartisan solutions, work on these bills, and work in a bipartisan way to implement the top line number that is already law. We don't need to find our way to a top line. We have a top line. Co-Chair Escobar and I sat through hours and hours of full Appropriations Committee meetings where Republicans tried to wrap themselves around the same talking points about spending less resources and going against the deal that their own leadership cut. It's a shame that we're in this position. We've got 50 days to the next deadline. We should be working in a bipartisan basis. But again, what do we have from the other side? We have censures, expulsions, impeachments. We have, a list of things that the American public isn't concerned about. They're not concerned about the DC parlor dance. They want to know what we're doing to reduce costs for everyday Americans. That's what Democrats are focused on. That's what we want to continue to work toward. We're waiting for a partner on the other side of the aisle to meet us there. Vice Chair Lou?
You got it. Mr. Aguilar?
Sure.
Morning, thank you. What would you make if the Republicans were to try to table or set aside the effort to expel Mr. Santos tomorrow? And do Democrats, as Speaker Johnson said last hour, he viewed it on his side, a vote on impeachment for Santos as a vote of conscience? I guess the second part of the question is, do Democrats view that vote as a vote of conscience as well?
I think our positions on this have been pretty clear. We've had a couple times to vote on this and to bring it to the floor. I'd encourage you to take a look at members' voting records on where we have lined up on this. I think this is all just performative on the side of the Republicans. They are trying to afford George Santos every opportunity to do the right thing and to resign. He is a serial fraudster. There is no sense that George Santos should have ever been elected, but for his incredible lies to his own constituents. Unfortunately, we may be forced to take a position. There's not a lot of joy in this at all, but we feel that this is the appropriate remedy to deal with the serial fraudster that is George Santos, and it's unfortunate that we're here, but that's the position that we're in. But George Santos is only been allowed to stay a member of Congress because of the thin majority. Do you think for any minute, if Republicans had a 25-seat majority, they would care about George Santos's vote? They needed him to vote for Speaker McCarthy. They needed him to vote for Speaker Johnson. That is the only reason why he is still a member of Congress. And I appreciate the politics surrounding this with the New York delegation and their newfound desire to hold their colleague accountable. It's not lost on us that earlier in the year they had an opportunity to do that and they didn't. But we welcome them to this discussion, and we encourage them to call this up for a vote.
And if there's a motion to table tomorrow, I mean, what do you think to try to get past this?
My belief is that Democrats would not vote to table this measure.
But what do you think of the Republicans if they put that out there as a fig leaf?
Look, if
two motions to table.
if they put a motion to table out, that is a motion to protect George Santos. That is a motion to keep George Santos as a member of Congress, to protect their thin majority, to protect Speaker Johnson and his thin agenda here, which we've seen. And so that's how I would view it. Vice Chairman? Sure.
There was a prior vote to expel George Santos, essentially, and Democrats overwhelmingly voted to expel him. Republicans, not so much. They're the reason he is still in Congress. There's going to be another vote this week. Hopefully, Republicans will do the right thing. Hopefully, George Santos will resign before that vote. But if George Santos remains in Congress, it's because Republicans are keeping him here.
Garrett.
You've got some former impeachment managers up on stage with you. I'm just curious what you make of the relatively slow start to the current impeachment effort that House Republicans are making and the sort of reported rumor that they may finally try to vote to formalize it in the not-too-distant future.
I think our question is impeach for what? Impeach who? And impeach for what? This is, again, censures, expulsions, impeachments. This is just what they are concerned about within their conference. This is what keeps them together. This is what binds them together. It isn't an agenda that they are for. It is a person that they are against. They are carrying President Trump's water here, as they have done time and time again, from the certification of the election to now. Donald Trump is the leader of their party, and this is yet another attempt to make him happy, to bring him joy, whether it's going down to Mar-a-Lago to make sure that he's being fed, apparently, to voting on impeachment. This is just fundamentally who they are. I'll yield to Joe Neguse.
I couldn't say it any better than Chairman Aguilar. I think he articulated it well. Any American who has watched 1 minute of the government oversight and reform proceedings over the last 6 months knows it to be political theater at its worst. They've articulated no cogent basis for impeachment or connection to the constitutional standard, as Vice Chair Lou and I know well, having served as managers back during the 2021 impeachment of former President Trump. It is, as I said, political theater at its worst, and it is meant to obfuscate away from the realities of the do-nothing Congress that Republicans have brought here to Washington, D.C. with their majority, which is displayed on both of these posters adjacent to me, right? When you have no policies to pursue, when your caucus is dysfunctional and chaotic, when you have brought the country to the brink of a default on its debt, when you have ultimately pursued not just one, but two potential government shutdowns in the span of 10 months, of course, you're going to focus all of your time and your energy on political games and distractions like baseless impeachments, which apparently the Republicans have settled on. So most Americans, I think, are concerned about everyday issues impacting families in California and Colorado and Texas and Massachusetts and Illinois. Lowering costs, growing the middle class, building safer communities, which is exactly what House Democrats have been focused on since day one.
Sure.
So thank you for your question. And I know I'm now going to date myself. My kids won't understand this, but remember that Wendy's commercial, "Where's the beef?" And they show this sandwich, and you look at it, and there's essentially no beef, and the customer keeps saying, "Where's the beef?" So where's the evidence, right? The Republicans can't point to a single shred of evidence implicating President Biden. That's why it's a slow start. There is no evidence. In fact, there should be no start at all because there is no evidence.
House Democratic Caucus does not endorse Wendy's or any chain restaurant. That is just a disclaimer.
Mr. Aguilar, I wanted to ask you about, before the Thanksgiving holiday, we saw the release of some January 6th footage to the public. You served on the committee. I feel like it kind of got buried in the Thanksgiving holiday. Was Democratic leadership given a heads up by Speaker Johnson that they were going to start releasing some of this video? And what's your reaction to it? I know there are some real concerns about safety of not just members, but people who work in this complex.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly dangerous. I said this over the last years. I'm not aware of any heads up that was given to House Democratic leadership before that. I viewed this as Speaker Johnson fulfilling a campaign promise and pledge. He had pledged to his conference that he was going to make it available. He didn't obviously care about the security and safety of the camera angles of what was being shown. That wasn't part of his calculus. He was running a campaign and fulfilling a campaign promise. That happens. I understand that. I think it's incredibly dangerous to play little snippets. The men and women who protected this Capitol complex went through a lot. And to play snippets that Tucker Carlson asks you to play just because you think that Donald Trump wants to see it is not helping us at all. And so I think it's a terrible precedent. I think it's dangerous. It puts the security at risk, the security posture of the Capitol complex at risk. And I hope that our Republican colleagues understand that.
Last question.
A number of your colleagues in recent weeks have announced their retirements, including in competitive districts. Does that give you any sort of concern going into 2024?
No, I think this is the House Democratic Caucus and the House of Representatives in general is just a mosaic that is constantly changing and evolving. We may say that, we may see a little bit of that later in the week here with the potential vote as well. And there's special elections. We just welcomed a new member who was sworn in yesterday from the Utah delegation. Some members on the Democratic side I'm speaking for are moving and seeking higher office, running for Senate, made their attempts known for governor. We wish them the best. I've served with governors and senators in this role, and we want our colleagues to be happy in public service. And those that feel their time in public service has come to an end, we wish them well. We're going to continue to work them hard this next 12 months, and then we will celebrate their achievements as they depart this place. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. This place is constantly reinvigorated with energy. You don't have to look further than the DPCC co-chairs behind me to see that. These are members who want to contribute to making our communities safer and stronger and better, and we're so thankful for their service, and we're going to be thankful for the service of the public servants who come after those individuals who retire. But I will tell you, personally, this is hard. Seeing friends leave is not fun. And I think all of us took a little bit of time over the Thanksgiving holiday to reflect on that, and I'm just so privileged to be here in this place with working with these people every day. One last question.
Thank you. Speaker Pelosi used to mention that the Democratic diversity is the party's strength. I'm struck by the fact that there are women and people of color representing not only Democratic leadership, but the Democratic messaging arm. You all represent core groups, key groups of the Democratic coalition, the backbone of the party. Can any of you just speak to how important it is to have lived experience as you're crafting messages, as you're looking to reach out to these communities to get them to tell their stories about how this legislation has impacted them? It's just the diversity of what I'm seeing right now is really striking.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I have the benefit every week of standing, in front of a podium and reflecting and seeing the Democratic caucus, just like we came from today, and to see that this is what our country looks like. I also stood and gave 12 speeches nominating Hakeem Jeffries, and to be able to have this group with me, behind me, supporting me, that looks like the country, and then to see the other side and to see the stark differences, not just in who we are, but who we represent, what we stand for. That's the most powerful thing that is never lost on me is the people back home who are struggling. They want government to work. They want us to help them achieve the best version of the American dream that they can. They want their kids to have safe schools and a better quality of life. That's what we all want and what we're fighting for. That's why we fight so hard to get to yes and to vote yes on bills to try to help our communities. We don't come in here thinking we're going to vote no on everything like the other side. We want to find a way to solve problems and to help people. That's just fundamentally who we are. But I'll close by asking Representative Underwood and Representative Trahan to speak to that too. Representative Underwood has taken a leadership role on also communicating how House Democrats communicate within our constituencies, back home in our districts, and I think that's important to highlight.
What's really clear is that the American people are receiving their information in different ways today. And we have to be responsive to make sure that our constituents feel seen and heard in the work that we do here on Capitol Hill. It is not lost on us that digital media is more popular than ever. People, I believe there was Pew, I think it was Pew, that just put out some information saying that at least young people are receiving more news on TikTok than on any other platform. And, they need to be hearing from us. The American people need to be hearing from us. And so I think that it's really important that as House Democrats continue to do our important work, putting people over politics, that we have voices at the leadership table that have these different lived experiences, as you say, and that we are really focused on making sure that our message is getting out to every corner of this country, on every device, and not just exclusively through the most established and traditional means. And I think you'll be excited to see how we continue to lean into that priority over the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. So definitely appreciate the question, and I think we're all reflective of the districts that we represent. I mean, certainly our lived experience is a huge part of our legislative agenda and our priorities, but also going home to our districts and making sure that what we're working on is impacting the people that we have the privilege to represent. You know, I don't need to read another study to know that better decisions are made when we have more diversity at the table and we include those diverse points of view to lead to better outcomes. And I think the Democratic caucus represents that. You know, I come from a family that when Congress isn't working, when we're engaged in chaos and dysfunction, we get disproportionately harmed, right? I mean, the American people are relying on us to put them at the center of everything we do. And I think all you have to do is look at the Democratic caucus to know that we have the backs of the American people in all corners of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you.